Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular episode, we're going to be talking about O-1 visas. And you might be saying, why are we talking about O-1s? Those you might have heard are just for people with extraordinary ability. Those are for people who are at the top of their fields. How can you qualify for an O-1, or what interest would it be for you? Well, let me tell you when O-1s really come into play here. I mean, there are the people who clearly qualify for O-1s. That would be a first choice, and you wouldn't think of anything else before going for the O-1. But that's not really where many of the O-1s come into play. Where it comes into play is when, let's say, for example, somebody wants an H-1B. Okay, and H-1B's, are all over the place. You can see some videos that I've done on it. Basically, those are the visas where there's 65,000 of them per year, and you deduct, about 5,000 for Chile and other countries, Singapore, and then, there's the advanced degree H-1Bs. And the bottom line with the H-1Bs is, the doors open in April, they're filed, they get used up, and then you can't file for another H-1B until the doors open again. Now, when the economy was really bad, and you could tell, it was interesting to me, you could tell the economy was bad by the number of H-1Bs that got used up during the year and the speed upon which they got used up. So when the economy was really bad, there was a couple years where all the H-1Bs didn't even get used up. All year long, they didn't get used up. Well, the economy started to come back again, and at least this last time, all the H-1Bs were used up within a couple months. And then there's the advanced degree H-1Bs, and those got used up shortly thereafter, and there's 20,000 more of those. So the H-1B, for all intents and purposes, is the most popular visa for people with degrees who want to come and work for somebody. That's the bottom line. So when the H-1Bs get used up, a lot of people don't want to wait until the next year, or they can't wait. The reality is, if a job opens and they're going to petition you, they don't want to wait 9 months to do it. They want to petition you now, and you want to go forward, or else they'll find someone else. And so the issue is, what else can you do if the H-1Bs are used up? That's the real issue here. Well, there is the O visa, okay, the O-1s. And while not everyone obviously will qualify for an O-1, there's a lot of people who, for my first choice, would be an H-1B, but since the H-1Bs are used up for a good part of the year now, the O-1 is what you look for. And just so you know, before the economy went bad, before the Great Recession, the H-1Bs, we would file on April 1st, have FedEx envelopes ready and into the mail center, and within 1 week, everything was used up. And then, even then, there was extra packets of H-1Bs in the mailroom at USCIS, and they would, by lottery, just pick the balance and then send the rest back and say, sorry, try again next year. So the O-1 is a great one to use if you qualify, and it can, if done properly, it actually can get you essentially what the H-1B does. It gets you a nice work permit. It can be issued for 3 years. There's some other things in there that are better than the H-1B, in that there's no 6-year limit on an O-1, meaning that you can renew it as long as it takes. While there isn't the exact dual intent of an H-1B, essentially it's similar. As long as you express an intention to go back to your home country, once you're done with the O-1, they don't really look much farther than that. It's not like the B-2, which is the visitor visa, where they look up and down and want all kinds of evidence that you intend on going back. So that's good with the O. Now, the O-1, let's get into some specifics. Now that I've sort of set up why you would go to the O and why it might apply to you, let's get into some specifics. Now, just so you know, the O, if let's just set up the parameters here. If you just graduated college and you're brand new out there and all you have is a degree, the O's not for you. That's the bottom line, okay? But if you're like a lot of people who are applying for H-1B's who have years of experience, and maybe you have some awards, even if you don't, if you have years of experience and a college degree, then the O at least is a possibility. Okay, it might not be as strong as the H-1B, but if you're not going to get the petitioner and you're going to lose it, versus having a decent chance at applying for it, then the O is the way to go. So the O is basically defined as a person who has extraordinary ability in the sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics, which has been demonstrated by sustained national or international acclaim. Now, just by that definition itself, half the people are going to walk away and say, that doesn't apply to me. It's too much. But it's really not, because there are ways of properly showing that might apply. Let's say that you have 10 years experience in accounting, and let's say you have an accounting degree. Okay, you might qualify for the O-1 based upon that. And all the different items that we have to pull in, that we have to get, might be applicable to you, because as I'm going to show you later on, you only need, they list 10 different things you need to show, and you only need to get 3 of them, at least to statutorily qualify for the O. Additionally, with the O-1, depending what area you're in, the burden of proof that you need to show, or the difficulty that it needs to show, or the level of expertise you need to show is different for each one. Some are actually less difficult to get than others. So for example, if you're going to get an O-1 in the arts, then you need to show less qualifications than if you're going to do it in another area of O-1. So if I'm analyzing a case and I see that you might not have sufficient qualifications for one type of O-1, I might try to get you in to another one in order to make sure, or to see that you qualify. So basically, you first need to determine what type of O-1 you're going to get. And then basically you need to be entering for the purpose of working in that particular field. Obviously you can't apply for an O-1 as an electrical engineer and go work as an accountant. Okay, so it does need to be in the field. But one thing, unlike an H-1B, which requires the degree, it is possible that you will not even have to have a degree for an O-1. So let's say in my previous example, you have 15 years of accounting experience but no degree. Well, you might qualify for an O-1. And even if you came into my door and you didn't have the degree, even though it's possible for, to do an H-1B and to do a degree equivalization, brief, it might be better in that case to do an O-1, because you don't have to prove a degree or equivalency of a degree at all. Okay, so that's how that would work. Now, how is it defined? How is the extraordinary ability of the particular applicant defined? Well, again, if you're applying in the science, education, business, or athletics, it shows that you are at a level of expertise that is one of the small percentage who has risen to the top of the field. So the question is, what is the field? Well, what I do is I narrow it. I really narrow it as much as I can. There's nothing wrong with that, but let's say you're an engineer, and let's say I'm trying to get an O-1 for you as an engineer. Well, it's going to be almost impossible, unless you receive the Nobel Prize, to get it as just an engineer, because there's so many engineers and there's so many different levels of engineering and so many different people who have made contributions that'll be hard. But let's say you work in plastics, okay? So I can narrow it and say, okay, plastics engineer. And then let's say that we even narrow it farther, and let's say you work on airlines. So, an engineer who works on airlines in plastics, and let's say that you work on different mechanisms in the wing. Let's say that's what you've done for 12 years. You've worked on various engineering parts dealing with plastics on wings on airplanes, and you've done that. Well, now we've really narrowed it to just the field that you're in, and now it becomes much easier to show that you have risen in your particular field, because we don't have to compare you, for example, to electrical engineers, to mechanical engineers, petroleum engineers, none of that. So that's the first thing. So that's why when you come into my office and I give you a consultation, the first thing I do is narrow down what field you're in. Okay, so that would be the extraordinary ability for science, education, business, or athletics. Now let's say you want to come into a field which was referred to in the arts. And that can be, the question is, what is the arts? It's not just, painting. There's all different kinds of fields that we can use for the arts, and there we need to show distinction, okay? And distinction is a high level of achievement evidenced by a degree of skill substantially above those normally encountered. Well, as you can see, the arts is less difficult to get than science, education, business, or athletics. Basically, this category requires the petitioner to establish only that the artist is prominent in his or her field of endeavor. So, if there's a way of showing or classifying your particular field in the arts, then that would be the better way to go, because the burden is easier to get the O approved, okay? Now, if you're in the motion picture or the TV industry, there's even a different one. There you just have to be a very high level of accomplishment, and you must be outstanding or notable. So I'm using all these adjectives, and it's hard to pin down exactly what that means, which honestly, that's why you have an attorney who knows what they're doing prepare the cover letter and the petition, because we argue that you are under all of those particular categories. Now, there are different ways of proving that you've met the various requirements. For example, if you're in the arts and you have to prove distinction, there's always the catch-all phrase where we can try to put anything we can in there, but there are certain lists that they have that will show that you're under it. Now, under this particular one, proving distinction in the arts, you have to show three of the following. One, you had a lead in a production involving a distinguished reputation. There was critical reviews in a major newspaper or trade journal. A lead for an organization that has a distinguished representation. You had a record of major commercial or critically acclaimed success. 5, significant recognition from organizations, whichever one there is. And 6, that you commanded or will command a high salary. So you need to show 3 of those. And many times you don't even think what you have could fall under there. But again, there's ways of presenting the arguments that will. Now, in the one that's more popular, really, the ability in the science, education, business, or athletics, you do need to show 3 of the following, okay? And this is if you don't have a Nobel Prize. So I'm assuming that if you're interested in doing the O-1, you don't have the Nobel Prize, because if you do, it's easy to get an O-1, okay? But it's easy to get other stuff as well. So assuming you don't have that, you have to show 3 of the following. 1, a receipt of nationally or internationally recognized award. 2, a membership in an organization that requires outstanding achievement. 3, published materials about you in a professional or a major trade publication. 4, judgment of the work of others. 5, original scientific or scholarly work of major significance in the field. 6, evidence of authorship of scholarly work. 7, evidence that you have been employed in a critical or essential capacity in an organization with a distinguished reputation. Or 8, that you have commanded or will command a high salary in relation to others in the field. So there's all kinds of ways, and I keep saying this, but really there are all kinds of ways of proving that. Just because you might say, oh, I have none of that, I can't do it. Well, again, you're faced many times with the option of either doing this and giving it the best shot and having a reasonable chance, or forgetting about it until the next year's H-1B comes about. And remember, as the economy gets better, even if you apply for H-1Bs the day they open, there's also going to be 50,000 other applications that are in there at the same time. So it's becoming smaller and smaller to get the H-1B as the economy gets better. Now, as another part of the O-1, you need to have a consultation, and that means from an organization. They basically, what I do is I contact the proper one and basically get a no objection letter. That's it. They have no objection to you coming into the country in this particular field. And so that's fairly easy once you get the contact and the organization that's able to do that. And then finally, there is the petition process. You have to do the I-129 and the O-1. Now, the O-1 you can't petition yourself. You do need to find an employer. But if there's going to be multiple employers, that's doable. But you have to have a different O-1 filed for each employer. And then you can have, which is neat about the O-1, you can have one agent that books you in several different places, and only one O-1 needs to be filed. So that's a pretty neat ability of the O-1, which doesn't normally exist with other ones. And then, of course, you can get extensions if you need. So I've gone fairly quickly over the O-1 and some of the requirements and so forth. But it is a very nice visa to get if the other H-1B is not available. So if you'd like to have a consultation, give me a call, email me. I'll be happy to help, and then we'll go from there. More on the coming.